This week on your Old School RuneScape update, Barbarian Training becomes a mini-quest providing new experiences for farming and anger management. We also discuss the merits of unlocking quality of life, what returning to Old School looks like, and Forestry changes for the better. This is the Old School RuneScape Update, Episode 15, recorded Saturday, February 17th, 2024. Barbarian Anger Management. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Old School RuneScape Update. This week, of course, Sirion is off, heading into the snow. Presumably, if the weather is going to cooperate for him to go skiing. But I do have somebody with me who is going to help me deliver this edition of the Old School RuneScape Update to you. His name is Thaxi. He's a resident around RSB&B for a long time. He played RS3, he played Old School. You were very active in the last league's competition. So tell the listeners something a bit about yourself.
I mean, very briefly, I'm an RS3 completionist. I've been top 1,000 or so in the rune score, the achievement points table for RS3 for quite a few years now. So I know a lot of aspects of that game pretty well. I'm no crazy endgame combat person, but I know how the game works, generally speaking. I finished, when I got kind of to that point on my main RS3 account, I didn't really want to push a lot of the obnoxious collections like pet hunting. I think a lot of our old school people can probably relate to that one. So I made a second account. I got another quest cape, and I said, yeah, that was fun. And then Leagues 2 came out, and I decided Trailblazer was an absolute blast. I played the ever-living daylights out of that league, and partway through, I'm like, well, it'd be nice to have some permanent account progress, and I like doing quests. So let's get another quest cape on Old School. So I started up an Old School account, and I played pretty actively for about a year or so. And then life and pandemic and a number of things got in the way, and I had to stop games for a while. And so I've kind of just let the account sit for a good bit. Before I left, all of my stats are, 50 to 70. It's nothing to write home about. But I'm done with a little over 2/3 of the quests. So I'm honestly in a pretty similar spot to where Shane and Syrian, I think, are getting to.
Yeah, it sounds about right, level band and whatnot.
And I'm just, poking about.
Yeah, and that's how Old School RS Update started, was with questing. And the idea, of course, was that, we're going to go get Quest Cape. We have this thing called the podcast where we can, kind of build a format around it. Let's share this with everybody. We do have the notes available this week as per usual at update.show/OS. You can also join the community Discord at update.show/Discord, and we do have a friends chat as well, which is BitsBytes. So we're gonna, of course, talk about what we've been doing this week, and maybe I'll ask you this question I was gonna ask you in the what have we been doing section, but I'm gonna just start off with the fact that I was forced to go. Well, not necessarily forced. I made the conscious decision to go and start Barbarian Training this week because that's, precisely what the update revolves around. And surprising to me, I was only missing 2 levels from actually starting it off.
I was too.
Okay. Which ones were you missing?
I was 53 fishing.
Oh, that's exactly the same as me.
Wow,
okay.
That's really funny. Yeah,
that's kind of freaky too.
I sit out at the River Lum outside the GE, and I farmed some fish and some trout and salmon while I was working on some other stuff this week.
Oh my God.
Got myself prepped.
I did exactly the same thing.
Yep.
But that is kind of the place to go if you don't want to. If you don't want to do something that's a little bit slower, you just want to,
I should have gone and done drift net fishing. I have the things to go drift net fishing, and I was feeling lazy.
And see, I was wondering, do I make that, part of this week as well? But I was only, 30k XP away from it, and at the time I was
good
more
XP. A little bit of agility. I know you did some of that.
Yeah, I was kind of more in just the mode for a little bit of AFK. So I just went with the salmon trout as you did.
you need like 15,000 experience. Just go do the easy thing that's close by. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
Didn't even.
Why take the escalator when you can walk up the stairs? Sort of thing.
Now, the real question: did you cook your fish?
No.
Wow. They put a permanent bonfire. This game put a permanent bonfire next to those fish.
Well, what am I supposed to do once it's cooked?
Then you shift click them. The same thing I presume, did when you were fishing them.
I assumed that you would have wanted me. I was assuming that you wanted me to, run it to the bank or something.
Oh, God, no. Shane, food is cheap. Cooking XP, though. You might as well
yeah, that's fair.
I dropped the second half of mine. I got 70 cooking. I completed RFD before I
nice.
stopped. So
Nice.
I started doing the XP for it, and I looked at the XP rate and how much XP I had to the next level, and I'm like, I just want the fishing XP, and I started dropping them too.
Yeah.
So I can't really judge you for it.
All this with Barbarian Training. They made Barbarian Training an actual mini quest now, so you can track your progress as you move through it. I think that's a good thing.
So nice.
Because otherwise you were kind of just at the whims of, going to auto and saying, what do you have for me? Where am I? Sort of thing.
I think the journal, there was a Barbarian, My Notes, I think it was. There's a book that he gives you while you do it, that if you look in the book, it says what your next steps are for each part of your training. Right. But not having to keep track of a physical item for it, really nice.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like, a good change.
And, why are we talking about this? Well, this week they added one section to Barbarian Training, and that's the farming section to it. Yeah, you're chuckling because...
Smiles.
Yeah, I guess, but I'm only going to be using half of it. The first half, of course, is the dipper replacement, or as many people used to think it was called and maybe see it as such. And I was actually browsing through the old school subreddit this week, and back in the day I used to think dibbler, and apparently other people used to think dibbler as well. Fun fact on that. I don't know why we would have thought that.
No, fair enough.
But of course, after completing this section, you are able to plant seeds without a seed dibber, and the interesting part about this is you can actually fail the first time you go and do it for auto, so you're recommended to use something that's not a valuable seed. I got it on the first go, so I'm thinking it must be fairly common to succeed.
Or
on the
you
first
have a
go.
really high farming level and it scales with farming. We don't actually know yet, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Well, did you succeed on the first go?
I did. But I have 60-something farming.
Okay, and that's
so
it's decidedly mid-level. Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know.
And the other one, of course, is that you, with so much anger, smash your plant pots after you plant them.
Dust.
That they just smash to dust.
Now, you say you're not going to do that? I'm going to ask you why.
Well, it's one of the most RuneScape-related things. So, on my first run to 99 farming, I saved my pots. I gave them to somebody after I got 99. I still have all my pots on RS3 from 99 to 200 mil in my bank. And I plan to do the same thing here. Okay.
You know what? That's valid. If you were going to be like, I wanted to save the cost, I would have absolutely
no. We had a whole discussion about that. We had a whole discussion about that in the Clan Quest Discord.
Actually, interestingly, I'm looking this up. It is 1 GP for a filled plant pot. It is 7 GP for an empty plant pot. So somebody out there is collecting them. Somebody else is physically buying and collecting empty plant pots.
Yeah. And
which is hilarious.
Like, this led to a whole interesting discussion about, do you smash the pot? Do you keep the pot? Or should, old school even have something?
If you're not doing it for a sentimental reason, you smash the pot. I don't believe there's another reason. Like, maybe if you're doing it to, like, keep your inventory organized in a very specific way, I guess. So is it a toggle? Is it something you can turn off after you do the training?
Yes,
okay,
you can.
Interesting.
You
just
can
have to do the training
that
before it gives you the toggle.
Yeah, you can. You have to talk to Otto to do that, and there is a brief moment of panic after that to, just go back to him and actually say, I don't want to smash my pots. I'm not that angry.
You know what? Again, I like the dialogue in the quest. Like that section of it, just like fisting trees is how they refer to it, and fisting seeds.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
And
we're not.
I
gonna,
found that funny.
Yeah, we're not gonna. Yeah, right. For obvious reasons. Obviously, right?
I just like the power of fist. I appreciate that this is a theme that Otto just gets into.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting as well for another reason. And on the design angle of this, they could have just added a tool belt to the game, but they have resisted for so long to add a tool belt. I don't even know if something would pull well if they did that.
Oh,
and
no
this is,
shot. I don't think so.
And this is how they get something in game like that's lore related. You have to unlock it, and even at that, it's a toggle, at least for the pot side. Whereas with the dibber side, you'll still use your dibber if you have the dibber in the inventory.
Yeah. And actually, I wondered, am I blind? I'm looking through settings because I swear there was a set of like destroy vials automatically, and that's also a barbarian training thing. I'm realizing that destroying vials as you use them is locked behind completing barbarian training as well.
Yeah, which is something that RS3 doesn't have, and it's interesting seeing all those comparisons like that. I mean, going through this content.
The RS3 is literally just like at level, base level 82 total or whatever it is when you spawn in. You can just go to your options menu and say, I want to automatically delete these things as I use them. Buckets from compost, all of that. And none of those are... Yeah, all those things where you actually have to go up to the people here and turn on and off the toggle after you've unlocked it.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the like even ammo going automatically to your quiver, same deal. Here you have to actually go and talk, and runes going to your rune pouch. You have to go and talk to the tutors and lumberts for it.
Yeah, and
which is like if we put to reduce your menus, I suppose.
Yeah, if we put ourselves in this kind of mold, is that more stereotypical old school philosophy? I'd guess, or I'd ask.
I think it's better game design philosophy from a MMO perspective. Like, at this point, I'm 4 or 5 MMOs deep, and every time I get on a new MMO, it's like I just expect and understand that my first 2 hours playing that game will not be playing the game. They will be going through the menus and trying to understand which of these settings I want to have on and off. And then another time, about a month later, I'm going to need to go back through all of those menus again and realize, oh, I screwed up. I actually want these ones on and these ones off. But like, that's just part of the game, is that you have to deal with the going through all of the settings that are either not optimal or not what you want to start with, and then going through and fixing it later. And old school has a lot less menu clutter. Like the RuneScape 3 one, I will say, is a little bit
right.
abysmal.
And then you get to the point.
We have a lot to be desired there.
Then you get to the
every
point.
Every time something changes, but I want to toggle, and it's a 20-year-old game.
Yeah, and you get to the point where your entire thing at old school then is that you are only unlocking these things after you do that piece of content, so it creates a more, natural onboarding process than for the first 2 hours or so in the game, like you said, adjusting settings.
Also true.
So
also true. I mean, I don't think that's the normal new player experience.
No, it's not.
I'm willing to assume that the majority of people just say, base settings are good, let's play the game. But that's just one of those things that other MMOs have taught me is beneficial to do. Without that experience, I wouldn't necessarily, but
and it's not just for games. I have config settings for my mouse and whatnot between different computers that get synced and whatnot. So it's just
but those things.
They
tell you what all the settings do. You should, in theory, when you get a new mouse, that's something you just should expect to do. When I get a new video game, I don't necessarily expect to spend the menu prog. But
yeah, okay,
here we are.
Are you going through the rest of Barbarian Training with this week, or is it going to be a matter of waiting a little while longer? Specifically, I asked because of the Mithril Dragon requirement.
I did everything except the Mithril Dragon requirement because of who I am as a person. I like to train combat through Slayer, and my current Slayer task is Worms, which is lovely, but they have 50 magic armor, and I have 66 magic, so I'm gonna not do that. Mithril Dragon is obviously not a good choice to kill with anything other than magic. I think, unless you are on a league and have ridiculous accuracy and ability to hit with other styles. So I think my Mithril Dragon's choice is going to be wait until I have my RMs available. So I need 4 more magic levels for that. And then maybe wait for a Trident at 75. Currently rocking around with the Accursed Scepter. I am the intended audience, I believe, for that weapon. Somebody between level 60 and 75.
Where does that one even come from? I haven't read into that one yet.
That drops from Terrorbirds. That's the Glyph quest that they released just a few months ago.
Okay.
Terrorbirds and Tortoises drop the Accursed Scepter. And that is basically just a mini Trident of the Seas. But at level 75, I will be immediately selling it and buying a Trident. So having the extra defense from RMs and the extra power from a weapon upgrade, given I also do have, we could do Tome of Fire, Tome of Water, and use fire spells, which would probably give me similar damage output and slightly more experience, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think you also want anti-fires if you want to tank absolutely no fire damage.
Got that covered. Yep.
Okay.
Those are viable.
Yeah.
So I have a stack of extended super anti-fires. So that's not a problem.
And fun part about this week, I went back to the Mithril Dragon drop page, and we're looking at the Dragon full helmet still, and this was still being as somebody who's easing into old school, 91 million GP grand exchange price for the Dragon full helmet. And a 1 out of 32K drop too.
No, so you have to remember that's the drop directly from the dragons. From Chewed Bones, it's a It's a 1 in 256.
Oh, okay.
And the Chewed Bones are 1 in 42, so 256.
Well, that's a good reason to do Barbarian Training.
It's a 1 in 10,000. Yeah. So in a 30,000 kills, you would expect 4 helms, which is a lot of kills, and that's obviously why it's still 91 mil.
Yeah.
But you do expect a helm every 7 or 8,000 kills. So
and we were getting to the bone drop as well with that, about 1 in 43. So whether or not you go dry on that, you could be there for a while. So I am leaving that part of Barbarian Training as well until later, when I am able to do better combat with that. But overall, I feel like the Barbarian Training update this week, the farming one, the mini quest, and all that put together, it's good. It's good, and it's just a little bit of TLC on top of it. And I think the community is going to be very appreciative of it, and it's interesting the way it was packaged too.
It's some small quality of life changes that are bundled with story. Basically, they added dialogue to it. It's a bottle dialogue. They didn't add anything like a new animation, right? And that's it. That's the only thing that was added to the game that wasn't previously in the code, other than some dialogue. And they just bottled in a quality of life update with a mini quest and some that's it, and that's great.
Yep. That's what we want.
Rather than
for
just
updates.
adding it as an option, they actually put content around it, which is cool.
Yeah. In any case, this week, aside from that, before the update mainly, I have been back on the agility track. I'm not committing. I soft committed to 99 agility untrimmed. I'm not going to hard commit to that just yet because, that's maybe a little bit more.
Where are you at in your journey?
I am 56.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you don't even have full graceful yet.
No, I am missing Copy. I am missing 2 pieces of graceful at this point.
Okay, you're getting there.
So
and
getting
what
there.
color are you going? I'm sure you've looked at what's your color choice?
I feel like that's obvious given the fact everybody knows for me, but I'm going to go for
green.
Yeah, I'm going to go for the Hosidius green one. And interesting fact, I don't know if I mentioned this to you or you listen back to it, but Sirion actually got the quest speedrunning one.
Oh, there's a quest speedrunning color. I see. Again, quest speedrunning, not a thing when I did this. So my graceful knowledge, I this was back in my day, which was not all
quest speedrunning might actually be something that you're into.
Yes.
Given the
Frankly,
fact that it's on specific worlds where you get the stats for it and whatnot, you just need to have completed the quest on Mainscape for it, and then you get points based on that.
Which I think I have almost all of these quests already done. I'm looking through the list. No, I've got about half of them. Oh, geez, no, not like Dragon Slayer 2, Sin to the Father. That's not it. We've not done those. But like X Marks the Spot, Cook Assistant, Vampire Slayer, Earnest Chicken Black, Knight's Fortress, Demon Rescue, Prince Alley, Below Ice Mountain. Haven't done Temple of the Eye. Looking forward to that. I enjoyed the minigame.
Oh my god, Temple of the Eye.
Dragon Slayer 1 we've got done.
That's
Temple of the Eye is chill.
Such a wonderful quest that one is, Temple of the Eye.
I need to get that rune crafting XP going because my actually I don't think I need more rune crafting experience for my quest cape. I actually think I have the level for that one. I'm at 54. I should double check.
Yeah, I feel like it might be higher, but you know.
I see why. I see the graceful though. You know what? I may need to change my graceful to that. That may need to be a thing because
it just goes so nice with the quest cape, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't hate the way graceful looks, but that graceful looks really good. Like I like the way that it changes the clothes. Like the boots and the top in particular, I think are really cool. The pants, I don't love the tunic look, but I like it. So when I did this, I got the I don't hate the agility arena blue, but I was not willing to do arena for it.
No.
Same thing with Hallowed Sepulchre. I actually really like the black, and that might be in my future when I get a lot of the Mauritania quests done. But when I started playing, my intention with the account was I want to see Zaya. I want to see Great Korend, because at the time it was Zaya. And I'm like, I want to see the new things and play the new quests. And so first thing, I made this account, and like at level 3, I took my butt through X Marks the Spot, and I took myself over to Korend, and I just did a bunch of the quests because so many of them are designed for like level 10s, right? Like so many of the quests on Korend
it's basically like a modern, old school, new starting experience, I think.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, except that there's a lot of content around you that is clearly higher level. Like it's a smaller, condensed version of the game. So there's a lot of content that is fine for low levels, and there's a lot of content that's not. Like I've been doing Konar my entire Slayer journey so far.
Is that what you've been doing this week? Because aside from Barbarian,
I mean, my Worms task.
Okay, because aside from the Barbarian
a full Worms task, when I was doing it with Magic, I got 9 kills off of an inventory of monkfish.
Oh my!
like I can kill one worm in about a health bar on me. And I mean, I'm in enchanted robes that are Receptor. Like, let's not oversell this, but like. That's honestly how I felt with my first Troll Slayer task. It was a bit underleveled for them, and it was slow and painful for that. I've got 133 worms to kill. I'm going to get so much XP. I'm going to cross my fingers for a Dragon Harpoon drop, but I am. There is. This is not getting done.
Like, is that the way we're supposed to view Slayer? Is that you get some huge task like that and you get a boatload of XP at the lower level and you just kind of struggle through it? Or is it meant to be that you print fast tasks?
I have 64 Slayer. When I started the task, I had 63. Worms unlock at 62 Slayer. So yes, I got 133 of them. Yes, Konar is going to give me the highest level of Slayer points for it, but also. This is supposed to be a harder task for me. She gives me things that are easier. And again, I think I have 71 range and Dragon Crossbow, and I am also pushing for 75 for a blowpipe because I want my blowpipe.
Yeah.
And range they are significantly faster because they only have 20 range defense, so I hit about twice as often. I have significantly higher accuracy.
So does that mean you're going to be a ranged person in old school as well?
Well, I mean, it's the same as RS3, right? You can use any style for anything in a lot of places, but
you just have to have that accuracy on top.
There's a lot of value to being able to use any style. I have myself, I have a whip and Barrow's armor. I have, I have Barrow's armor for all 3 styles except for Karl's because Karl's somehow worse than God D'hide. So I have basic armor and tier 70 weapons in all 3 styles ready to go. I just need to get the levels for them. I'm 4 levels below blowpipe. I'm 4 levels below RMs and 9 levels below trident. And my melee setup is good. I'm set there. But that's the big thing is I just need to get to a level where I can use the gear that is going to be good enough to kind of push me through the rest of the training toward, now that.
So what would you say was the main thing
then
that you were working on then this week? Would it be that Slayer task? What have you been
honestly doing? It kind of getting back into the account and like figuring out what exactly is going on and what levels I have in need. Like I bought that Accursed Scepter because that wasn't a thing last time, and I got myself set up to go and poke worms for the first time. That was cool. And I got those fishing levels and did the training and a little bit of odds and ends. I poked at thralls, but I don't have the quest. I think it's Kingdom Divided for thralls yet. I need to go and get that done, so I put that on the to-do list. A lot of this week was just like pulling myself back into the account and reacquainting myself with the bank.
Yeah, because there's been so much content too that you really got to think differently about it. I found, and that's like one thing with old school. You can't just necessarily, because if you take the same path that you would have took, in 2007 with RS3, you're going to be miserable, right? Or when it was Madescape. But
I mean, past me did current me a favor and had an organized bank, so it wasn't the craziest thing. And I've, did a bunch of the achievement diaries and stuff already. So like I'm set up. It's just remembering like, okay, if I want to go do fishing training, I should go do drift nets. And it was the hemming and hawing for a little while, like, do I go and get the supplies and go over there? Like, I should go do a birdhouse run, Like, it's just.
What do you think of those? Because I know you're not a fan of like the farming herb runs.
Yeah, I don't mind hunter as a skill, so I don't know that I'm going to do a lot of birdhouse runs because I'm not an Iron Man and I don't need speed. But they are really good XP. So like,
yeah, I've gotten to level 50 passively on them. So. Oh
yeah, no, I mean what's my hunter at? 51. So yeah, same idea. Yeah. I don't know. I don't love farming for the same reason. It's that like I'll do a daily run once a month just to like get a goal done. Like that's what I'm gonna need for farming. I need to get I think 70 farming for Song of the Elves probably. So I need 11 farming levels.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. No, and that'll be like I have the trees already in my bank. I think it's 3 tree runs. So like. That's fine. But not a huge fan of birdhouses. That's definitely one of the things that like burns me out when I'm doing like leagues and stuff because you have to.
And it kind of takes you out of the rhythm. And I've got to a point on old school here where my farming runs, if I do a full farming run including birdhouses, I'm easily looking at 45 minutes.
Well, and part of that too is like at a lower farming level, at least where I'm at. Like it is actually kind of efficient to do allotments, right? Like digging up a full patch of watermelons is like a level. That's like a full level. If I do 2 allotments, a location of watermelons. So like that adds on to farming time a lot when you're not just going to 12 tree locations that you have pre-saved in a bank preset that you're pre-drawing things out and running, right? Like you're using the add-on to say, you need these items and here's a preset for your bank, just draw them all out. It is really quick to set that stuff up. But if you're doing all these locations and you have to actually spend a lot of time like harvesting, it adds time to things.
I feel like we should have pulled on this thread more when we did that farming monthly bit. Because we actually did talk about farming last week and, the ecosystems of it a bit here on the show too, in relation to how we did that monthly bit. So it's interesting that we're kind of just hovering around that same area again. And I don't.
When you say we should have pulled on that string, you mean the low level string?
Yeah, the low level string about how it can how you can kind of get sucked away, like we were just talking about here.
But here's the deal, and the reason we didn't need to for RS3, and apologies for Earl's people, very simply, you do beehives. Like you get to level 20 and then you put woad leaves in the beehives and then you come back tomorrow and you have 60 farming. Ta-da, you're done. Like, like Not to say that the player-owned farm has trivialized the skill, but the player-owned farm has trivialized the skill.
Yeah, and it's made it so that you don't necessarily need to do these, 40-odd minute runs like that. So we can be appreciative
fully different conversation
of that, of course. But anything else from your week you kind of want to hone in on, pick up on, things you might have learned?
I'm sure things will pick back up. I did, again, as I'm woodcutting now, I'm noticing since we're talking about updates for the week, and maybe this is a good segue, removal of forestry items this week.
Yes. Yes.
That's a cool change.
That bothered me. That bothered me on leagues in terms of, because that, I'm going to be 100% honest. That's where I've done most of my woodcutting since forestry came out. I sampled it a bit when it launched, but
was during the league.
Was during leagues, and just the very fact that you're missing things like B parts or whatnot. Then you're going to the wiki and you're like trying to say, how do I make this work with this event, and then what does this do with this other event, so on, and so forth.
I did get, I think, 80 million woodcutting experience on leagues for one reason or another, because it was fast primarily, and I had all of the gathering relics,
right,
to auto burn, auto bank, auto all of the things. So all of the skills associated with woodcutting were very fast and very low input from me. So I did a lot of forestry, and I did figure out all those things, and like they were interesting because it was worth carrying all of them from a like mathematical perspective. If you're doing like woodcutting alone, if you're with other people, only one person needs to have the item to spawn the event. Everybody gets the bonus from the event. But if you didn't have the item, then it wasn't taken from you, and you still got full bonus from the event. So there were only like 2 of the items you really needed to carry to actually get benefits, and the rest of them you could kind of leech, and that was kind of the better play. And so I get why they took them away, because it was a little bit of a like, do you be the good person and like carry them because you'll still get something out of it, or do you not carry them because you'll get more out of it because you didn't have to put anything in?
And see, my perspective on it is that it just created such a mess when it came to onboarding with forestry and the way the forestry kit worked and all that is just too much overload for something, as they said, is a skill that is chop wood, get logs.
Right. Well, the follow-up part to this too, the I guess you have to put the spin on it. Is it good game design that they have now taken away functionality as well? Because previously, if you didn't want to get an event, like if you were doing your own forestry, or you were in a small group or whatever it was, you could choose which events you spawned by only having the items you owned. Like say you didn't want to pollinate flowers, so you really,
right.
It didn't increase the rate of other events spawning, but it just like, you can't turn off the entlings. But say you didn't want to hear the entlings yelling at you to cut their branches, right? Like, or like, the pollinating flowers or something. Like you could not have things spawn by not having items. And I guess that functionality, like technically it was only a like, we're going to reduce visual clutter at the cost of you potentially seeing XP or whatever. And the visual clutter maybe isn't such a big deal, so maybe there isn't actually any functionality else there.
And see, I see it also from another angle as well, is that if you're shipping forestry as the complete package, shouldn't you be able to get all the events and not have to worry about if you have those? And I definitely do see the optimization angle. So I haven't seen anything this week as to say that hey, don't do this, but that's actually a good point.
I like them as unlocks too, and I'm looking through the skill guide and I don't see them. But I think part of the news post said that they did level lock them, right? Like in terms of X1 won't spawn until you hit X level.
Yes, that's right. They say they're or no. The only thing mentioned in relation to the levels is they're increasing the drop rate for all the uniques from the events in line with your woodcutting level. So,
okay, maybe you can just get them all at any level then.
Yeah,
it would be a fun thing to have as an unlock to like you can now participate in X event. Like that does lock functionality at low levels, so I can see why maybe they didn't
but
want
I
that.
also but I also know your optimization hot streak inside you wants to just optimize for a specific set of events if you're aiming to train woodcutting in a kind of lean back
see,
fashion.
the thing is, when it rolls an event, it then checks if the item was on you. So you still roll on all the full event table regardless. You don't actually optimize for XP at all. You just optimize for which ones are visually showing up to you. So, I mean, the XP per hour hasn't gone up or down at all. I just like woodcutting is one of those skills that has a very empty level up table.
Yeah.
As opposed to other skills, like I know people don't love runecrafting, but runecrafting does a great job at higher levels where you still get something almost every level with multiple runes or pouches or infusions or whatever it is.
And isn't the great thing about woodcutting now after Forestry that it feels modern enough that it's not something you need to necessarily worry about in terms of world hopping with the non-compete logs and trees. So
no, and that part is awesome. But I would say wouldn't hurt my feelings if they had more things on the level up table for woodcutting.
What are you thinking in particular? Like just in terms of...
I would, again, those events, I think it would be cool if you could only participate in events if you had a specific level. And I don't think those levels need to be particularly high. But like the early woodcutting levels, like I'm looking through the level up tree, you get a steel axe at level 6. And that's the only thing you unlock between level 1 and 10. Like that is the first unlock. The second unlock is light jungle. If you're doing Taibo when I like village management.
Yeah, and we know how fun that is to go there and do that.
Yeah, it's a black axe if you're doing clues because it's the only way to get one, right? At level 11, and otherwise you literally get nothing from level 1 to 15. And I'm not going to say that you need extra unlocks there because that goes so fast, right? The skill is so fast at low levels. But it's also like
I've even found it fast in the 50s.
I would say it's important that like the levels are I mean, obviously you're chopping trees faster, like there are unlocks, but in terms of visually saying you can now do this thing, I think it would be cool if like you just got access to like the Entling special at level 5, or something like that. Like I feel like there was an opportunity to maybe fill in the low, like even just 1 to 50, the level tree a little bit. But I guess it also does feel bad if you're like a new player and an forestry event happens around you. And you can't participate in it.
Yeah,
but
so that's why
most people at those levels aren't optimizing by like hopping to the forestry world.
And I'm wondering if that's why that decision was made.
Does that matter?
Right. And see, I feel like we're describing here the two types of old school player, right? The one who wants to have the full experience with that versus, only experiencing a subset of events until you level up and using them as that.
Getting them as unlocks, yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean, dopamine of level up is good. Dopamine of level up plus get new thing is better.
Yeah. What's your woodcutting level out of curiosity?
56.
Okay, I'm in the low.
I'm this year's maples right now.
I'm in the low 50s, and what I honestly found with it is that even heading into the 50s, it's still a reasonably fast skill. And I guess the question is, going upwards north of 70 into 80, this is me not expecting to have this discussion on the podcast right before we began, but I'm wondering, when it comes to magic logs and higher up in the process here, what is the use for that in game? Because you look at the profit value for cutting magic logs, it's only 125k GP per hour, which is not something you're gonna do for that, and you're only getting
it's fletching. They're used for fletching training, right? I mean, and a little bit of fire making, but also winter tot exists, so like why? I think a lot of people cut redwood logs because you kind of get it, like redwoods are the top dog. And so magic logs might not be worth a lot, but redwood logs, because they are the best XP per hour for skills, those are worth quite a bit, and that is a very, very AFK activity. Like they just decide it's like it's like crystal trees. It's you go and you stand around the big old giant redwood tree up on the scaffolding, and you just AFK in the woodcutting guild, which I should go and check out because that wasn't a thing when I played that.
Yeah, and you didn't have Corint and Leak, so you didn't get to experience that.
Yeah.
So
nope. But and actually, forestry events can't spawn there, right? So that is an interesting.
Yeah. So I guess if you don't want any of the events, then you just go do it in the woodcutting guild.
Yep.
And that's the other binary of that. So,
which is fair.
Yeah, and I'm actually just looking at the dev blog right now, and the thing we were talking about in relation to this is that it just comes down to the items adding unwanted complexity in terms of the woodcutting skill.
That is one of those failings of an MMO problem is where like, yes, technically it said in the menu how to make them, or it said when you purchase them how to make them. I think you had to click the item, and like there was a secondary step. Like understanding how forestry items worked required looking and reading through the wiki page. Like you had to read several pages of text to
and you should not have to do that in my opinion.
And then access a table of what things you needed to add together to craft and what other additional levels you needed, right? Because the other thing was that the items, some of them had level crafting requirements, right? Like making a spoon required that you have a crafting level to craft the spoon to get the pheasant egg event. And so like, they've removed that.
And then with that, you just ask why, right?
Things.
Like why?
Well, like it's a cool way to build it in. And like, again, they have pulled the ever living daylights out of forestry. Like they did forestry well and people loved it.
Yeah, I'm so glad we got it in game. In any case, just a couple of other things as we wrap out the forestry changes here this week. We do have to mention the Twitcher gloves as well. It's a single item now that doesn't need charges, and they also doubled their bird nest buff to 20%.
Yeah, which is nice.
Yeah.
Again, if you're like they have leaned hard with birdhouses and this into the bird nests are valuable. The cost is currently 5,000 anima bark and 500 willow logs, which is very reasonable.
Yeah, it's a bit, but it's not too bad.
No, you're going to get that without terribly much trouble, right? Like the 5,000 bark will take you a minute, but it's like if you want these, they're not bad to get a hold of.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's cool.
Would you do an Iron Man ever on old school? No. Okay.
But I also, I have now 4 accounts that are not Iron Man, so I am not the person probably to ask. But I like being able to use the GE. I don't hate the multiplayer aspects of the game. I don't feel like I want that extra level of challenge.
Yeah, that's fair.
Shout out and big power to all people who are like, this makes them feel so good because they're doing it themselves. I don't like making my own runes. Making my own gold.
Right, and that's a great accomplishment, and that's actually something League showed me, because half the time previously I would like half Iron Man things, and after doing Leagues, now it's just 100% always to the Grand Exchange.
Well, like, there's some stuff on absolutely Iron Man, like it's the RuneScape model, right? We have talked about this. I'm sure you and Syrian have talked about this, where it's like the whole game loop is, I could go do this. It would be, if I want to achieve goal X, the fastest thing for me to do is to just go and grind at goal X. But by golly, I can get to X 20% faster if I go and do thing Y. Now, thing Y will take as long as thing X. Don't get me wrong.
He's mentioned
but Y will make X faster.
He's mentioned it on the show before. He has a whole Notion sheet that shows all the goals and their connections and whatnot, and I think I probably have to share that at some point on the show.
I've made those too. I have a couple of post-its floating around that are literally like the tiniest cramped text abbreviations of things, but it's like 12 steps long. Like, I'm going to do this so that I can do this so that I can do this. And the questers, we are the worst at this, right? Because we want a quest. In order to get to quest, we need these 4 requirements, but in order to train the skills for those requirements, we want these unlocks first. But in order to get those unlocks, we also want this achievement diary so that unlock is a little bit faster. It's like you can make a heck of a tree. Because yeah, it all has to get done eventually, right? You might as well do it now so that it's more efficient for this other thing you want to do. And that is the whole RuneScape model, like in my brain.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, like if like that's part of having fun with the game is being okay that that's a thing that you're probably going to end up doing.
And then
being
sometimes
new to the game involves not knowing a thing Y exists. You just go do thing X, and that's cool too.
Right, and that sometimes option Z is to just go off in some random direction and do something else for a bit.
Correct. It's just, but I'm walking past this fishing spot, and fishing sounds really good right now. So hard left turn for a second, you know? Like,
well, we're talking about goals and quests. I feel like with that, it's probably time to start wrapping up the show this week. So anything else you want to share from your week or old school that you picked up or you remember new before we go?
I'm enjoying it. I'm going to get back in. I've got a lot of new quests to do, so we'll see what happens with all that.
Garden of Death, Temple of the Eye, Giants Foundry, Sleeping Giants.
Kingdom Divided. Yeah, done Giant Foundry a few times now. That's,
okay. Yeah.
I liked that activity on these as well.
Yeah. So and as well, you've done Guardians of the Rift as well, but you need to do Temple of the Eye, given the fact that you're primarily a lore person and quester.
I do love me some lore, and I am not mad about being sunk to the bottom of the sea in the Eastern Sea.
Yeah,
it's a very different idea from our arc, so
yeah.
I'm excited to see the lore there.
Yeah. In any case, Sirion will be back next week after a ski trip. So thank you, Thaxi, for filling in for him.
Yes.
Hopefully, listeners
thank you for having me.
Enjoyed this new, fresh voice, new, fresh perspective here on the Old School RuneScape update. But as per usual, subscribe to the podcast. We're on all the big ones out there: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and more. Just visit update.show/OS. And with that, we'll see you next week for another episode of the Old School RuneScape update. See you then, everyone. Take care.
Ciao.